The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its walls were made of living crystal that shifted colors with the emotions of those inside. Today, the crystal glowed a calm blue, reflecting the routine nature of the proceedings. Representatives from the 12 founding species sat in their designated sections, some bored, some distracted, and some not paying attention at all. Elder Verthanis watched from his seat in the upper gallery. He was old, even by Selenari standards. His pale skin had turned almost translucent with age, and his 4 eyes had grown cloudy over his 800 cycles of life. But his mind remained sharp enough to remember things the galaxy had chosen to forget. Below him, the debate continued. "The humans have been among us for 40 years, said Ambassador Nathan Cole. He stood at the central platform, his voice calm and measured. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. "We have followed every rule. We have honored every treaty. We have contributed to galactic peace in countless ways. We ask only for what we have earned: full membership in this council." The Selenari representative nodded in agreement. So did the Velmari and the Tereshi. But Elder Verthanis kept his eyes on the Kthrani section, where High Counselor Drexen sat with obvious displeasure on his scaled face. Drexen rose slowly. He was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with dark green scales and eyes like burning coals. The Kthrani were warriors. They had conquered 12 systems before joining the council, and they had never let anyone forget it. 40 years, Drexen said, his voice dripping with contempt. 40 years of humans scurrying about the edges of civilized space, farming, trading, breeding like insects. And now they want to sit among us as equals. A murmur ran through the assembly. The crystal walls flickered with hints of red. Nathan Cole did not react. His face remained calm, though Amy Watts, his military liaison, shifted uncomfortably beside him. "With respect, High Counselor," Cole said, "humanity has proven itself peaceful. We have no interest in conquest. We seek only cooperation and mutual benefit." Drexen laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. "Peaceful," he repeated. "Yes, you are peaceful. You are soft. Your lives are short, your bodies are weak, and your spirits are timid. You are herd animals, Ambassador. Prey species pretending to be predators." He gestured dismissively. "The Kthrani vote against human membership. Let them remain what they are, guests in our galaxy, nothing more." Several other species shifted nervously. Some agreed with Drexen. Others simply did not want to oppose him. The Kthrani had powerful allies and a reputation for holding grudges. Elder Verthanis had heard enough. He rose from his seat, his old joints protesting the movement. The assembly fell silent. It was rare for an elder to speak during routine proceedings. It was even rarer for a Selenari historian to leave the archives and address the council directly. "I wish to speak," Verthanis said, his voice thin but steady. The assembly speaker, a Velmari female, nodded respectfully. "The council recognizes Elder Verthanis of the Selenari archives." Verthanis made his way slowly down to the central platform. Each step took effort, but he refused assistance. When he finally stood before the assembly, he looked up at Drexen with something close to pity. "High Counselor," he began, "you call the humans weak. You call them prey. You believe they are soft because they have chosen peace." He paused, letting his words settle. "I have read the ancient records. I have studied texts that predate this council by 10,000 cycles. And I must warn you, you are making a terrible mistake." Drexen's eyes narrowed. "A mistake? What mistake could there be in recognizing weakness?" Verthanis turned to address the entire assembly. "Long ago, before the founding of this council, there was a species that encountered humanity's ancestors. They were called the Verith, and they were powerful beyond measure. They ruled 1,000 systems. They had weapons that could crack planets and ships that blotted out stars. He paused again, his cloudy eyes distant with memory. The Vareth discovered Earth during humanity's early space age. They saw what you see now: short-lived creatures, fragile bodies, primitive technology. They decided to conquer them, to enslave them, to use them as labor for their empire. The assembly listened in silence. Even Drexen seemed curious despite himself. The Vareth no longer exist, Verthanis said quietly. Their empire is dust. Their worlds are empty. Their name survives only in the oldest archives, as a warning. He turned back to Drexen. Do you know what destroyed them, High Counselor? It was not disease. It was not natural disaster. It was not another empire. Then what? Drexen demanded. Humans, Verthanis said simply. The very species you mock as prey. The very species you call weak and timid. They destroyed the Vareth so completely that nothing remains but records and ruins. Laughter erupted from the Kthrani section. Drexen himself let out a harsh bark of amusement. You expect us to believe that these farmers destroyed an empire of 1,000 systems? Elder, your age has stolen your sense. But Verthanis did not waver. He looked at Nathan Cole, who stood perfectly still, his face unreadable. Humans are not weak, Verthanis continued. They are not prey. They are predators who have chosen to wear the mask of peace. Their kindness is not their nature, it is their restraint. And if you push them, if you threaten what they love, that mask will fall. You will see the beast that sleeps beneath their smiles. He pointed a thin finger at Drexen. I have read the records of what humans do to those who harm their children. I have seen the accounts of their wars against each other, weapons that burn cities in seconds, conflicts that killed millions in single battles. They are the most violent species the galaxy has ever known. And you are poking them with a stick while mocking their patience. Drexen shook his head slowly. Senile ramblings. The council will not be swayed by ghost stories. The vote was called. Humanity's membership was denied, 8-4 done, as the assembly dispersed. Verthanis approached Ambassador Cole. The human's face was still calm, but something flickered in his eyes. Something that made the ancient Selinari's blood run cold. I am sorry, Verthanis said quietly. I am sorry for what they will force you to become. Cole looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded once and walked away. 3 days later, a Kthrani war fleet began moving toward the human border. And Elder Verthanis returned to his archives to wait for the darkness he knew was coming. New Haven was everything its name promised. The colony sat in a green valley on Meridian 7, surrounded by golden wheat fields and orchards heavy with fruit. 15,000 people called it home. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, and merchants. They had built their community far from the politics of Earth and the games of the Galactic Council. They wanted only to live in peace. Governor Daniel Marsh stood on his balcony and watched the sunrise paint the mountains pink and gold. He had been a teacher once, back on Earth. He came to New Haven to escape the crowded cities and give his daughter a better life. Now he led this community of dreamers and builders. His communicator buzzed. It was Lieutenant Katie Vance, his security chief. Governor, we have a problem. Daniel's stomach dropped. Katie never called unless it was serious. What kind of problem? The kind with 40 warships, Kthrani. They just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They're heading straight for us. Daniel was in the command center within minutes. The small room was crowded with worried faces. Katie Vance stood at the main console, her jaw tight. She was young, barely 30, but she had served in Earth's military before coming to New Haven. She was the only one among them who had ever seen real combat. Can we contact them? Daniel asked. They're not responding to hails, Katie said. But they're broadcasting a message on repeat. She played it. The harsh voice of a Kthrani commander filled the room. Human colony designated New Haven. You are occupying space that has been realigned to Kthrani territorial authority. You will surrender immediately and submit to processing. Resistance will result in termination. You have 1 hour to comply. The room fell silent. Dr. Paul Hendricks, the colony physician, spoke first. Processing? What does that mean? Slavery, Katie said flatly. Or worse. The Kthrani don't take prisoners the way we do. Daniel grabbed the communication console. This is Governor Daniel Marsh of New Haven Colony. We are a peaceful agricultural settlement. We have no military value. Please, let us negotiate. We can resolve this without violence. The response came quickly. A young Kthrani appeared on screen, his scales darker than most, his eyes filled with eager cruelty. He wore the insignia of a commander. I am Commander Drexen the Younger, he said, son of High Counselor Drexen. There will be no negotiation, human. Your species was denied council membership. You have no rights, no protections. You are nothing. Daniel kept his voice steady. Commander, there are children here, families. We are not soldiers. Please, show mercy. The young Kthrani laughed. Mercy is for equals. You are prey. The screen went dark. Katie was already moving. Governor, we need to evacuate everyone to the underground bunkers. Now. Daniel nodded. Do it. Sound the alarm. The next hour was chaos. Sirens wailed across the valley. Parents grabbed their children. Farmers abandoned their fields. The entire colony moved toward the bunker entrances scattered throughout the settlement. Katie had only 200 security personnel, and most of them had never fired a weapon in anger. But they took their positions and prepared to buy time for the civilians. The bombardment began exactly 1 hour after the warning. The first strikes hit the wheat fields. Columns of fire rose into the sky as weeks of harvest burned in seconds. The message was clear: surrender or starve. But Daniel would not surrender his people to slavery. He ordered everyone to keep moving underground. The Kthrani landed ground troops soon after. Thousands of warriors poured out of dropships, their armor gleaming in the firelight. They moved through the colony with brutal efficiency, destroying everything in their path. Katie and her people fought back. They set ambushes. They used the terrain. They made the Kthrani pay for every street and building. But they were outnumbered 50-1. And the enemy had better weapons, better armor. And no mercy. Dr. Hendricks stayed in his clinic as long as he could, treating the wounded and recording everything on his personal device. When the Kthrani finally reached him, he hid the device and pretended to be just another frightened civilian. Governor Marsh refused to go underground with the others. He stayed above, helping stragglers reach safety. When a group of children got separated from their parents, he found them and led them toward the nearest bunker entrance. They almost made it. A Kthrani patrol spotted them in the town square. Commander Drexen the Younger was with them. Wow, the young commander said, stepping forward. The governor himself. How convenient. Daniel pushed the children behind him. There were 7 of them, the oldest barely 10 years old. Take me, Daniel said. Let the children go. They're no threat to you. Drexen tilted his head, studying the human with cold amusement. You still don't understand, do you? We're not here for prisoners. We're here to send a message. Your species needs to learn its place. He raised his weapon. Daniel Marsh did not close his eyes. He stood tall, shielding the children with his body. His last thought was of his daughter. Safe in the bunkers below. The shot echoed across the burning colony. Katie Vance heard it from 3 blocks away. She fought her way to the square, but she was too late. Daniel lay on the ground, and the children were screaming, and the Kthrani were laughing. Something broke inside Katie that night. Something cold and hard took its place. She gathered the survivors. 200 had become 40. They retreated into the tunnels, sealing the entrances behind them. Above, the Kthrani declared victory and began loading captured civilians onto transport ships. Dr. Hendricks had one job left. From a hidden communication station deep in the bunkers, he transmitted everything, every recording, every image, every piece of evidence. The emergency beacon would take 3 days to reach Earth. When it arrived, the footage was played in a secure room deep beneath military headquarters. Admiral Ryan Torres watched in silence as New Haven burned. He saw Daniel Marsh die protecting children. He saw Kthrani soldiers executing farmers. He saw the faces of the dead 6,000 humans, including 1,200 children. His hands shook. Not from fear, not from shock, from something far older and far more dangerous. The officers around him waited for orders. Torres was known for his calm, his patience, his strategic mind. He had ended the Mars rebellions with minimal bloodshed. He believed in measured responses, but this was different. This was children. Torres stood slowly. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. Send the 7th Fleet. Full mobilization. No restrictions. An aide hesitated. Sir, the 7th Fleet is our entire forward force. 300 ships. If we send them all, 300 is not enough, Torres said. Wake the reserves. All of them. Every ship. Every soldier. Everything we have. The aide's face went pale. Sir, that's... The galaxy doesn't know we have that many ships. Torres looked at the frozen image on the screen. A dead child lying in the ashes of her home. They're about to find out. The galaxy had always believed it knew the size of humanity's fleet. 200 ships scattered across their small territory. Enough for defense, not enough for aggression. The Council had monitored human shipyards for decades and kept careful records. They were certain of their numbers. They were wrong. When the first human fleet emerged from hyperspace, near the Kthrani border, sensor stations across 12 systems screamed warnings. 300 warships appeared where there should have been none. But they were not alone. More fleets followed. And more. And more. Within 48 hours, over 2,000 human warships had assembled at the border. The largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Appearing from nowhere like ghosts from an empty void. On the galactic assembly world of Valanthos. Panic spread like wildfire. Elder Vithanis sat in the gallery and watched the council descend into chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate intervention. Others called for neutrality. A few quietly began drafting surrender protocols, just in case. High Counselor Drexen stood in the center of it all, his scaled face twisted with disbelief. This is impossible, he snarled. Our intelligence showed 200 ships. 200? Where did they hide an entire armada? No one had an answer. Vithanis rose slowly. The assembly fell silent, remembering his warning from months before. I told you, the elder said quietly. I warned you what they were. You laughed. You called my words senile ramblings. He gestured toward the tactical displays showing the human fleet. Do you believe me now? Drexen's claws scraped against the stone floor. This changes nothing. The Kthrani military is the finest in the galaxy. Numbers mean nothing against superior training and technology. Today, Vithanis activated his personal display, projecting images into the air above the assembly. Let me show you what you are facing. The first images were from Earth's ancient history. Grainy footage of explosions that consumed entire cities in mushroom clouds of fire. Nuclear weapons, Vithanis explained. Humans invented these during their second global war over 300 years ago. A single bomb killed 80,000 people in seconds. They built thousands of them. They pointed them at each other for decades, knowing that using them would destroy their entire species. The assembly watched in horrified silence. They fought 2 world wars in a single generation. The second one killed 70 million of their own kind. 70 million. Counselor Drexen. More than the entire population of the Kthrani homeworld. Thanos changed the images. Trenches filled with bodies. Cities reduced to rubble. Mass graves stretching to the horizon. This is what humans do to each other when they disagree. This is the violence they are capable of. And they have spent the last century learning to control it, to channel it, to hide it behind smiles and handshakes and trade agreements. He turned to face Drexen directly. You killed their children. You destroyed their homes. You laughed while you did it. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. You have awakened something that should have been left sleeping. And now, High Counselor, you will see what happens when humanity stops pretending to be peaceful. Drexen's confidence wavered for just a moment. Then he straightened his shoulders. The Kthrani do not fear prey species. We will crush this fleet as we have crushed all others. He stormed out of the assembly to join his military commanders. 3 days later, the first battle began. Captain Derek Shaw stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, flagship of the 7th Fleet. He was 42 years old, with tired eyes and steady hands. He had commanded ships for 20 years, but he had never seen combat like this. No human had, not in generations. Contact ahead, his tactical officer reported. 120 Kthrani warships. Standard formation. They're hailing us. Shaw nodded. Put them through. A Kthrani admiral appeared on screen. His scales were pale with age, his bearing rigid with pride. Human vessels, you are entering Kthrani sovereign space. Turn back now or be destroyed. Shaw studied the alien for a moment. Admiral, I am Captain Derek Shaw of the United Earth Defense Forces. We are here in response to an unprovoked attack on our colony at New Haven. 6,000 of our people were murdered, including 1,200 children. We demand the immediate surrender of all personnel involved in this crime. The Kthrani admiral laughed. You demand? You are outnumbered, human. Your fleet of 300 cannot match our 120. Kthrani ships are worth 3 of yours each. Is that so? Shaw leaned forward slightly. Then let me give you some advice, Admiral. In about 30 seconds, you're going to learn something important about humans. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. He cut the communication and turned to his crew. All ships, execute Pattern Omega-7. Weapons free. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The Kthrani expected a conventional engagement, 2 fleets meeting in a line, exchanging fire, testing each other's defenses. That was how civilized species fought. Humans were not civilized. The human fleet scattered into seemingly random patterns, then reformed into attack groups that struck the Kthrani formation from 6 directions at once. Their weapons were not more powerful than Kthrani weapons, but they fired faster, adapted quicker, and targeted weak points with surgical precision. The Kthrani realized too late that humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. Every tactic, every maneuver, every dirty trick that worked in their bloody history had been preserved, refined, and updated for space combat. 11 minutes after the first shot was fired, it was over. 89 Kthrani ships drifted dead in space. The survivors fled in chaos, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. The human fleet had lost nothing. Not a single ship. Not a single life. Captain Shaw watched the retreating enemy on his tactical display. His expression showed no satisfaction, no triumph. Only grim determination. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Continue advance. Next target. the Kthrani military shipyards at Vor Station. Across the galaxy, species who had never paid attention to humans suddenly found themselves glued to news feeds. The battle footage spread like wildfire. Military experts analyzed every second, trying to understand how a fleet of inferior ships had achieved such a complete victory. On Volanthos, Elder Verthanis watched with the rest of the council. Around him, representatives sat in stunned silence. 11 minutes, someone whispered. How is that possible? Verthanis shook his head sadly. I told you, humans do not fight like other species. They do not follow rules. They do not respect tradition. They find your weaknesses and they exploit them without mercy. Admiral Ryan Torres appeared on every screen in the galaxy, broadcasting on all frequencies. His voice was calm, but beneath the calm was something that made even veteran warriors shiver. This is Admiral Ryan Torres of the United Earth Defense Forces. We came to this galaxy in peace. We offered friendship. We asked only to be accepted. Your answer was the blood of our children. He paused, letting the words sink in. Now hear our answer. Every Kthrani military vessel, station, and facility will be destroyed. Every soldier who participated in the New Haven massacre will face justice. This is not negotiable. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The transmission ended. The galaxy held its breath, and the human fleet continued its advance, unstoppable, relentless, and utterly without mercy for those who had shown none. The Kthrani Empire had taken 200 years to build. It fell in 3 weeks. Admiral Ryan Torres commanded the campaign from his flagship, the UES Sovereign. He did not sleep. He barely ate. He studied every report, approved every operation, and carried the weight of every decision on his shoulders. His officers worried about him, but they did not question his orders. They had seen the footage from New Haven. They understood. The human advance was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Kthrani commanders expected sieges, negotiations, gradual pushes, and strategic pauses. Instead, the humans struck like lightning, hitting multiple targets simultaneously, never giving the enemy time to regroup or reinforce. Lieutenant Katie Vance had been rescued from the tunnels, beneath New Haven along with the other survivors. 43 people had lived through the massacre out of 15,000. Most of them were broken, traumatized, barely able to function. Katie was not broken. Katie was focused. She had requested immediate transfer to the front lines. Admiral Torres had granted it, assigning her as a ground combat advisor. She brought with her the cold fury of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Her first mission was the liberation of a Kthrani prison facility, where captured humans from New Haven were being held. The rescue team dropped from orbit at night, moved through enemy lines like shadows, and freed every prisoner without losing a single soldier. When they found the cells, Katie was the first one through the door. The prisoners inside flinched away from her weapon, too traumatized to recognize a human face. "It's okay," she said softly, lowering her rifle. "We're here. We're taking you home." An old woman grabbed her hand and wept. Katie held her for a moment, then turned to her team. "Get them out. All of them, now." The Kthrani learned quickly that humans fought differently on the ground than they did in space. Human soldiers were smaller, weaker, and less armored than Kthrani warriors. But they were also faster, smarter, and terrifyingly creative. They turned every building into a trap, every street into an ambush, every retreat into a counterattack, and they adapted. That was what frightened the Kthrani most. In the first battle, a human tactic might fail. In the second battle, that tactic would be modified. By the third battle, it would be perfected. The humans learned from every engagement, adjusted their approach, and came back stronger. "They're not fighting like soldiers," one captured Kthrani officer reported. "They're fighting like they've been doing this forever. Like war is their natural state." He was not entirely wrong. 2 weeks into the campaign, the human fleet reached the Kthrani core systems. The Empire's military was in ruins. Their fleets were scattered, their stations destroyed, their supply lines cut. Victory was certain. That was when Ambassador Lyra Sorvith arrived. She was Velmari, a neutral species known for diplomacy. Her ship appeared at the edge of the human formation, broadcasting peace signals on every frequency. Admiral Torres agreed to meet her aboard the Sovereign. Lyra was tall and elegant, with silver skin and eyes like deep pools of water. She carried herself with the dignity of someone who had negotiated between empires for decades. "Admiral Torres," she said, bowing slightly, "I come on behalf of the Neutral Coalition. We wish to discuss terms for ending this conflict." Torres studied her for a long moment. "There is nothing to discuss. The Kthrani attacked our colony without provocation. They murdered our people. They killed our children. We will have justice." "Justice," Lyra repeated carefully. "Not revenge?" "There is a difference. A significant one." She stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Admiral, the galaxy is watching. They have seen your fleet destroy the Kthrani military with ease. They have seen your soldiers sweep through enemy territory like fire through dry grass. They are afraid." Torres shrugged. "They should be, but they are also confused." Lyra's eyes searched his face. "Your forces have not harmed a single Kthrani civilian. Your ships have avoided population centers. Your soldiers have protected non-combatants, even at risk to themselves. This is not how wars are fought. This is not how conquering species behave." Torres was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "We are not conquering anyone, Ambassador. We are not here to enslave the Kthrani or steal their worlds. We are here to hold them accountable for what they did." He met her eyes directly. "Human history is full of monsters who killed innocents and called it victory. We swore we would never become those monsters, not even when we had every reason to." Lyra studied him with something like wonder. "You could glass their homeworld from orbit. You could kill billions in an hour. Why don't you?" "Because their children didn't attack New Haven. Their farmers didn't murder our people. Their teachers and doctors and families didn't choose this war." Torres turned to look out the viewport at the distant stars. "We are angry, Ambassador. We are furious beyond words. But we will not let our fury make us into the thing we hate." The campaign continued, but word of the conversation spread. The galaxy watched as human forces systematically dismantled every Kthrani military installation while carefully avoiding civilian casualties. When a Kthrani city was caught in a crossfire, human medics were the first on the ground, treating wounded regardless of species. It made no sense to the watching galaxy. Conquering species took what they wanted. They punished entire populations for the crimes of their leaders. They burned and pillaged and enslaved. Humans did none of these things. High Counselor Drexen tried to flee as the human fleet approached Kthrani Prime. He loaded his personal ship with treasures and loyal guards and attempted to escape. Through a back route, human special forces were waiting for him. The capture was bloodless. Drexen's guards surrendered the moment they saw how badly they were outnumbered. The High Counselor himself was found hiding in a cargo container, stripped of all his dignity and pride. They brought him to Admiral Torres in chains. Drexen expected torture. He expected gloating. He expected the kind of cruelty he would have shown to a defeated enemy. Instead, Torres simply showed him the footage from New Haven. Every death, every scream, every child crying for parents who would never come. Your son commanded that attack, Torres said quietly. Where is he? Drexen's defiance crumbled. Dead. He died in the first battle. Your ships. Good. Torres's voice held no satisfaction, only exhaustion. Then he's already faced his justice. You will face yours before a tribunal of all species. The galaxy will decide your fate, not us. Drexen stared at him, uncomprehending. Why? Why not just kill me? I would have killed you. I would have killed all of you. Torres leaned close. Because we are not you. We never were. That is what you never understood. He straightened and addressed his guards. Take him to the holding cells. Make sure he's comfortable. He has a long journey ahead. As Drexen was led away, he looked back one final time. His voice was barely a whisper. You were never weak, were you? You were holding back. All this time. Torres did not answer. The human fleet took position around Kthrani Prime. They could have burned the planet clean of life. They could have turned an empire into Ashdod instead. They sent a single message to the Galactic Assembly. The war is over. We demand justice for New Haven. Nothing more. Nothing less. And the galaxy, for the first time in recorded history, did not know what to make of a species that could destroy everything and chose to destroy nothing. 6 months had passed since the human fleet surrounded Kthrani Prime. 6 months of negotiations, tribunals, and difficult conversations. The galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened and what it meant for the future. The Galactic Assembly Hall was fuller than it had ever been. Representatives from every known species crowded the galleries, eager to witness history. The living crystal walls glowed with a complex mixture of colors, anxiety, hope, confusion, and something that might have been awe. Elder Vithanis sat in his usual place, watching the proceedings with ancient, tired eyes. He had lived long enough to see empires rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. The Kthrani Dominion was no more. Its leaders had been tried before a tribunal of all species and found guilty of crimes against sentient life. High Counselor Drexen would spend the rest of his days in a prison colony, stripped of his title and his pride. The other architects of the New Haven massacre faced similar fates, but the Kthrani people remained. Their worlds were intact. Their civilians were unharmed. Human forces had withdrawn the moment the trials were complete, leaving behind nothing but medical supplies and reconstruction assistance. Today, the Council would vote on human membership one final time. Ambassador Nathan Cole stood at the central platform, looking older and more tired than he had 6 months ago. The weight of everything that had happened showed in the lines on his face, but his voice was steady as he addressed the assembly. Representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, humanity comes before you again. Not to demand, not to threaten, simply to ask. He paused, letting the silence stretch. 6 months ago, our colony at New Haven was destroyed. 6,000 of our people were murdered. 1,200 of them were children. We had every right to answer that horror with horror of our own. We had the power to burn Kthrani Prime to ash. We had the anger to do it without hesitation. His eyes swept across the assembly. We chose not to. Not because we are weak. Not because we are afraid. But because vengeance is not justice. Destruction is not victory. We came to this galaxy seeking peace and partnership. That has not changed. It will never change. A murmur ran through the crowd. Cole continued. We ask only for what we asked before a seat at this table. A voice in this council. The chance to build something better alongside all of you. That is all we have ever wanted. He stepped back and gestured towards someone waiting at the edge of the platform. But I am not the one who should speak for humanity today. Someone else has earned that right. Commander Katie Vance walked forward. She wore a simple uniform, no medals or decorations. Her face was calm, but her eyes held depths of pain that would never fully heal. She carried a small device in her hands. "My name is Katie Vance," she said quietly. "6 months ago, I was the security chief of New Haven Colony. I was there when the Kthrani came. I was there when they burned our homes. I was there when they killed our people." She activated the device. Names began scrolling across the display behind her. Thousands of names, each one accompanied by a small image. These are the people we lost. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children. They had names. They had faces. They had hopes and dreams and people who loved them. The assembly watched in silence as the names continued to scroll. Some representatives wiped tears from their eyes. Others looked away, unable to bear the weight of so much loss. "I wanted revenge," Katie admitted. "When I saw Governor Daniel Marsh die protecting children in our town square, I wanted to kill every Kthrani in the galaxy. I wanted to make them suffer the way we suffered. I wanted them to know our pain." She paused, her voice growing thick with emotion. "But that's not who we are. That's not who we choose to be. We fought because we had to. We won because we had to. But we stopped when we didn't have to anymore. Because being human means more than just surviving. It means choosing to be better, even when being worse would be easier." The names finally stopped scrolling. The last one was a little girl, no more than 5 years old, with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile. Her name was Sophie, Katie said softly. She wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. She never got the chance. She looked up at the assembly, tears running down her cheeks. "I'm not asking you to feel sorry for us. I'm not asking you to fear us. I'm asking you to see us. We are capable of terrible things. So is every species in this room. But we are also capable of mercy, of forgiveness, of choosing peace when war would be simpler. That is what makes us human. That is what we offer this galaxy." She stepped back, and the assembly erupted in whispered conversation. The vote was called. One by one, the representatives cast their votes. The Selenari voted yes. The Velmari voted yes. The Tarashi voted yes. Even species that had previously opposed human membership changed their position. When the final tally was announced, it was unanimous. Every single species had voted to grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. For the first time in galactic history, a species had been accepted not despite their capacity for violence, but because of their capacity to restrain it. Elder Verthanis rose slowly from his seat. The assembly fell silent, waiting for the ancient Selenari to speak. "When I first warned this council about humanity," he said, "I spoke of their wrath. I showed you their wars, their weapons, their terrible capacity for destruction. I told you they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known." He looked at Nathan Cole and Katie Vance. Standing side by side on the platform, I was wrong. A ripple of surprise passed through the crowd. Their wrath is not what makes them dangerous. Their wrath is simply what they do when they have no other choice. What truly makes humanity remarkable is not their ability to destroy. It is their ability to choose not to. He turned to address the entire assembly. They could have burned Kthrani Prime. They could have enslaved an entire species. They could have taken revenge so complete that the word itself would have been redefined. Instead, they sought justice. They protected the innocent. They offered mercy to those who had shown them none. His ancient voice grew stronger. "I have lived for 800 cycles. I have studied the rise and fall of 100 empires. And I have never seen a species choose forgiveness when they had the power to choose annihilation. That is humanity's true weapon. Not their ships. Not their soldiers. Not their fury. Their mercy." He looked at Katie Vance one final time. "I warned the galaxy of humanity's wrath, and I should have warned them of their mercy instead. for that is the weapon no species can defeat. The assembly hall fell silent. The living crystal walls glowed a soft, warm gold, the color of hope. 3 years later, a memorial was completed on the rebuilt surface of New Haven. The colony had been reconstructed, larger and stronger than before. New families had joined the survivors. Children played in fields where ashes had once fallen like snow. Admiral Ryan Torres, now retired, stood before the memorial with Katie Vance at his side. 10,000 names were carved into the black stone, each one illuminated by a small eternal flame dot at the base of the memorial. A single inscription caught the morning light. We came in peace. We fought with fury. We chose forgiveness. Katie read the words aloud, her voice steady now, the raw edges of grief softened by time. Do you think they would be proud? She asked. The ones we lost? Torres considered the question carefully. I think they would be proud that we didn't become the thing that killed them. I think they would be proud that New Haven is full of children again. He smiled sadly. I think Sophie would have liked that. They stood together in silence as the sun rose higher, painting the memorial in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere in the archives on Valanthos, Elder Verthanis added one final entry to his records. A single sentence that would echo through galactic history for thousands of years to come. I warned them of humanity's wrath. I should have warned them of their mercy, for that is the weapon no species can defeat. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity, at long last, had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as something far more powerful, as proof that even the most terrible fury can be tempered by the choice to be kind.